good to know. So it moves on to the other problem that I think is a very big challenge for coaches because usually when you work on the team, in general, coaches try to have this aspect as much as they can, but usually on the team, it's not just about selling ideas to people, it's the people tend to develop their own ideas as well. So often as a coach, you need to work with five competing ideas. And the key trait that you mentioned is that players want to see coaches that are open-minded. Now, care to elaborate more on this topic?
Yeah, I think for any person, being open-minded is gonna develop your sense of the game, your ideas about the game, etc. And it's gonna make you like, because a lot of ideas that are new, they seem kind of crazy once you hear them, but maybe if you do a little bit more research, maybe you try it, and maybe it can work, you know? Because a lot of these, like, let's say new meta stuff and new strategies, once they enter the scene, they seem crazy, but somehow they work. And if you're able to like take them seriously, not only are you going to develop better ideas about the meta and grasp onto these new concepts faster, but your discussions are going to be so much more fruitful because let's say that I'm talking to like a 5-year-old and 99% of what he says is like complete bullshit, but then like it's the monkeys on the typewriter, right? If someone is spewing bullshit and you can see past the bullshit until you find that one thing that they say is like ingenious, then you can find knowledge in like the weirdest places just because you're actually considering it. Um, yeah,
So here's the competing idea of that from the coaching perspective, right? As much as we like to be open-minded, we like to consider crazy strategies. Now, as a coach, you're a project manager of sorts. Like you need to map out the entire timeline of what's happening during the season. You have your laundry list of problems that you need to solve within the team. When it comes to innovating and stuff like that, the question is, do we have enough scrims? Do we have enough time? Like if we go with the European method of scrimming, you get 5 times 6, you get about 30 games of scrims a week, right? It's slightly less than that when you have match days, when you factor in the match days and stuff. But during season, you're guaranteed, say, 3 days before scrims, you have about 15 scrims to figure things out. How many of these scrims do you dedicate towards trying new things out, to testing theories and stuff like that? Because it's one thing to appreciate the theory behind the concept. Like, say, we're going to play four-man in the top lane, right? For example. And it's another thing to be able to get the team to understand the key beats of what the strategy is trying to achieve and adapt and execute it accordingly.
yeah,
Well, of course, whenever people execute it successfully, there's very big payoff, like when we see Sonar Lux or when people were doing Sonar Taric and stuff like that. But the challenge here is always, do we have the time to invest into these type of things when the laundry list is full or you are facing these other challenges as well. So that's the coaching perspective from why some coaches might seem less open-minded than others, especially when you're dealing with a team that's lower down on the standings, because maybe they feel that we shouldn't really be focusing on trying Hackrim Lux in the bot lane. We should just be focusing on securing Scuttle Crab in the first 3 minutes, making sure that our bot lane doesn't die 2v2.
yeah. No, I definitely agree with that, especially in lower level leagues like national leagues and stuff. If I were to decide like the game plan for a random team one split, I would just say do the same thing over and over and just master that thing you're doing. Like do the same thing with like I don't know 3 to 4 champions that fill the same role in your holistic strategy, and you just try to repeat that and get as good as possible. But once you're past that stage, maybe your second split or something together as a team, you can start branching out and really implementing all the open-mindedness, for instance.
Right. Moving on then. So the other thing, the fourth thing they brought up is that you think a coach should be good at influencing players to soften interpersonal relationships, and I honestly do think that this is one of the biggest factors when it comes to managing high-performing teams, or in fact any uh, team in general. Is how do you handle the interpersonal relationships? Now we like to share more on your perspective on this as a player, because from the initial thing is that the question is why can't you guys just figure it out between two players, and what is from your perspective the coach's role in helping to mitigate, say, a conflict between two players?
Yeah. Before I tackle it, I feel like, especially when we're like putting it out in 6 points like this, a lot of responsibility is gonna land on the coach, just because most players they're young, Some of them inexperienced. They haven't been playing for that long. They don't have a lot of life experience. So they're not gonna be able to do that much of this stuff themselves. That's why I think the coaching staff should at least consist of a few people, especially in higher levels. But anyways, um, so there's stuff like me, for instance. I try to bottle things up. So if I'm tilted at someone, I won't really notice it, or even if I notice it, I won't really confront them about it. I guess I'm not very confrontational in that sense. So a coach that would like see that in me, that okay, this guy's tilted but is not doing anything about it, gives me an outlet, or like wants to talk to me about it to get all that emotional distress out, for instance. That's one way for me to for the coach to deal with the problem, in a sense, to make sure I'm not tilted by trying to talk to me about it.
So it kind of goes back to being able to identify problems, right? Like a coach has to be very fast, very quick. Okay, this player is tilted. I need to step in and I need to address the tilt. From your perspective, do you prefer coaches? Do you prefer a coach to directly address you while you're tilted, or do you prefer the style where they let you cool off and stuff like that, and then maybe address everything at the end of the day?
Oof, that's really tough because I mean I know for sure when you're tilted, like your mind is not making any sense, like it's really illogical. So maybe having a discussion at that point is like I honestly don't know. I think you would have to try both because I know the latter works to some extent, but maybe if you're like the coach sees your tilted and he just drags you in like a back row and you get it out there and then maybe that can be better. I'm not sure.
So I think that there has to be some form of de-escalation and be stepping away and then readdressing things later, or dragging you into a private setting and then addressing the issue. Both are forms of de-escalation that can be used by coaches to tackle this problem. But definitely identifying things quickly and being able to influence players to solve interpersonal relationships is quite a big thing. And I think that you brought up a very interesting point, is that when you work in League of Legends, usually your coaches are at least a few years, or at least in my case, I'm a freaking boom. I'm like 8 years older than some of the players. So the level of emotional maturity that coaches have is going to be much more different, and they're able to supposedly see things clearer than the players when things get heated um, between the younger ones, right?
Yeah. Um,
So on a similar topic,